Hi, welcome back to 2 Cells, 1 Pack.
Today we have an EXN here. The tube is unfortunately punctured, and therefore we're going to change the tube and show you how it's done. These are the tools you'll need to do a tire change on the Begode EXN. A set of 4 and 5mm hex, a set of tire spoons, a tire valve core removal tool, as well as a PH2 screwdriver. So the first thing we need to do is to remove both the pedals in order to release the frame. Now, if you didn't know, these pedals are held on by 2 5mm grub screws on each end. There are several Phillips screws around the edge of the case, as well as 2 in the middle that we need to remove in order to release the side panel. On the right side of the wheel, you'll see the single battery pack and the control board mounted on the top. We'll need to remove this black cover in order to unplug the phase wires so we can drop the motor out of the Now this black cover is supposed to be a shield to protect from fire or something along those lines. Now with this cover, I do like to remove it from the wheel as it does trap a lot of heat. Now the only problem is that the fan cable goes through the hole of this cover. So what we need to do is just unplug the fan in order to release it. Whenever you remove phase wires, you do want to make sure that you keep track of these colors. So it's green, blue, and yellow. Now that your hall sensor and phase wires are hanging, it is now time to remove the pedal hanger bolts. There's 6 of them on each side in order to drop the motor and pedal hangers from the rest of the shell. There are 6 bolts on each pedal hanger, and each bolt is a 4mm hex. When pulling the shell off of the motor, just make sure you feed these cables so they don't get stuck and you don't pull or yank or damage them. Since we are just replacing the tube, we can leave the tire half on the rim and pull the tube out of the side. Now, sometimes with the new tubes, since they are so flat, you might find it difficult to feed it all the way in and stay in. So what I do is I like to pump a little bit of air so the tire becomes a more round profile, at which point it will sit in that bead by itself. Since now you can see that the air is a bit pumped in, you can kind of squeeze the tire and go into the gap. Now, as you can see, I might have put a little bit too much air, so I'm going to release a little bit. Once the tire is seated in there, what you want to do is just make sure, again, that line, that the bead is balanced on all sides. Kind of pull and push where you see fit, and then pump it up slowly to make sure that there's no lumps in the tire. So with the EXN, the pedal hanger actually sits above the shell bottom. So it would be best to lay the EXN on its side in order to properly align the holes before you start screwing things down. Now, as we go, we're going to gently put this in here. Make sure your cables are in the hole. I like to slide in about this much. This gives you enough room to still put your hand into the wheel and manipulate the cables to go through the hole before pushing the rest of the wheel in. Once you've fed your phase wires all the way in, your motor is seated, you'll want to check into these holes to make sure you can see the corresponding threads for the pedal hanger. And this is very sensitive, so I always like to screw everything in by hand before tightening anything down. Once you've completed all the bolts on this side, we're going to tilt the wheel up and try to line up the bolts on the other side. Once you have threaded all 12 of these bolts into the pedal hanger, it is now time to tighten things down. So make sure you line up the hall sensor pins here with the gaps that are on the top of the plug and put that back in. And now you want to refer back to the photo that you took in the beginning and plug in the phase wires back to the correct posts. So from right to left, it is yellow, blue, and then green. Now that they're plugged back in, it's time to make sure that you slide the covers back on to prevent any arcing. So in this scenario, I'm not putting this black cover back on, and that is due to the customer's request. So if you want to put that back on, you can go ahead and do that right now before you put the side shell back on. So when putting back the shell together, just make sure that it sits within the lip. Sometimes the shell might sit outside of the lip, and therefore you'll need to push it inwards or pry it inwards in order to get it to sit in the correct position. Now you can see that the lip sits properly. At this point, you can screw the screws back in. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the tire change for the EXN. Now, this is a bit of an older wheel, but at least if you do have it, you can now follow along and figure out how to repair it yourself.
That's the end of our video. If this is useful, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. You may also turn on ding dong to receive the notification of our latest content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.